I think we are live. Awesome. Sneha, give me a heads up if we are live. Okay. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another session that we are hosting for all of you fellows and candidates who have applied for TezAsia. I hope it's going smoothly. You all are having fun while learning all these different components of building on top of Tezos. And I also hope that all the workshops are insightful and helping you guys to build your hacks and products. So today's session is all very important. We have had multiple sessions about smart pi, how to write smart contracts, what is Tezos, and token standards like FA1.2, FA2, and multiple different things. But usually where there are some components when you are building your dapp, decentralized applications, where you have your smart contracts, then you have and then you have your front end, and then usually you need to a sort of a way to communicate with the smart contracts that lives on the blockchain and your front end that lives on web 2.0. And how do we do that? That's what today we are going to learn. And we have got an amazing person, Claude, today to take this session. Claude has been a very active developer in the Tezos ecosystem. He has built variety of products. He is very active when it comes to sort of developer helps or anything. You might see him, multiple channels whenever you're gonna ask any questions. Claude is from Taquito team, and he's gonna take you through how to connect your front end with your smart contracts using Taquito library, which is equivalent of Web3.js in Ethereum. And I hope you all gonna have a lot of fun while learning this. So without further ado, I would like to invite Claude, and feel free to ask him all the questions you have by the end of session. Anything that you want, be it Taquito related, be it anything else development related. He has built multiple cool products that I'll also be putting links to, so you can also get inspiration yourself that how can you build multiple products and uh, you know get your entry into the Tezos ecosystem. Right. Awesome. Really excited for this workshop, and I would like to invite Claude to take up the stage and take all of the people who are watching this through how to build using Taquito on Tezos. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. So I'm Claude. So I work as developer relations for the Taquito team. So I work a lot with the Taquito library, and when I create dapps. So I'm going to introduce you some basics of Taquito. So we're going to see like what it is exactly, what it does, how you can use it, like the basic features of Taquito to integrate to your applications. So I'm going to sorry, I'm going to show you a little presentation, and after that I can answer to some questions. And when we're done with the questions, I'm going to do a very quick live coding, so you can see how Taquito integrates into your JavaScript application. We're just going to add some functionality to a template that I have. And we're going to send a transaction to a smart contract that's deployed at the moment on the testnet. So just give me a second. I'm going to share the screen so you can see the presentation. I think it's working. So let's start. So Taquito, I think that probably a lot of you have, if you have played with the front-end apps and the Tezos blockchain, you probably heard about Taquito. So it's going to help you create dapps for the Tezos blockchain. So the first question that we want to answer is, what is Taquito? So we want to understand what it is and what it can do for us as developers. So Taquito is a JavaScript library that you're going to use to interact with the Tezos blockchain. So more exactly, it's a TypeScript library, and it's also going to give you some tools to use in the TypeScript application. But you can, of course, use it with any JavaScript application that you're building. And so Taquito, as a library, is going to have 4 main features that are going to help you with your application to interact with Tezos. So the first feature is that Taquito is going to help you read general data from the blockchain. So after this slide, I'm going to show you some examples for the 4 main features, so you can understand exactly what Taquito does. But with Taquito, you can read data from the blockchain. So there's some data that's exposed by the Tezos blockchain that you can read, and Taquito is going to help you do that very easily. Another feature that's very important when you create a dapp on Tezos is that Taquito is going to help you read data from smart contracts. So you probably know now that one of the main features of the smart contracts on Tezos is that you can read the contract to get the data from the contract. You don't need, like, for example, on Ethereum, you don't need to send a call to the contract to get some value back. All the values from the contract are exposed, and you can just read them. And Taquito is going to make it very easy for you to read the data that you need from the smart contracts. Also, in the same context of the smart contracts, Taquito is going to help you send transactions to the same smart contract, so to interact directly with them and calling the entry points, and also watch the status of your operations. And Taquito is going to make it very easy to forge operations and send them to the contract. It's a one-line process. And finally, the 4th feature that we're going to talk about and that Taquito is going to give you is different tooling solutions that you can use around Tezos-specific data. So there are different methods in the Taquito library that you can use to format data, to validate data. So different things that you can use to make sure that the data you're using is a proper data, or that you have the right data. Or we're going to see some examples of that kind of solutions that Taquito is going to give you to make your life easier as a Tezos developer. So the first step when you want to use Taquito is, of course, to install it. So Taquito, being a JavaScript library, it's of course available on NPM. So you can just install it using npm install. So there are different libraries under the Taquito library, but the main library is called @Taquito/Taquito. That's probably the library that you're going to use the most to interact with the Tezos blockchain. The good news that also this library integrates different other libraries from Taquito, so they're already installed and you can use them directly. We're going to see an example a little bit later. Otherwise, if you're not building a Node.js application, you may want to use a CDN solution to get Taquito, and it's also possible from unpackage.com. There's always a version. The latest version of Taquito is available there, and you can just import it in a script tag in an HTML file, for example, and you can use the JavaScript code that you get. And then, so I was talking, Taquito is going to try its best to make your life easier as a developer. And so if you want to start using it, after installing Taquito from npm, it's just going to take you 2 lines of code to start using Taquito. So you just import, there's a class in the Taquito library that's called Tezos Toolkit. You just import it from the library, and then you instantiate it, passing as a parameter the address of the node that you want to interact with, and that's it. This is going to return an instance of the Tezos Toolkit that you can then use for multiple purposes. So we're going to start seeing some of the things that you can do with Taquito. So if you remember, the first feature that we talked about was reading data from the blockchain. So that instance of the Tezos Toolkit that we created on the previous slide is going to expose different methods and properties that you can use to read data from the blockchain. So for example, if you would like to get the current block level, you can use Taquito to get that information. So for example, the Tezos Toolkit instance has a property that's called RPC, and you can call a method on this one that's called getBlockHeader, and it's going to return different information from the block header, and one of them is going to be a property called level, and that's the current level of the blockchain. So you will see that all this information that come from the blockchain are formatted to be usable very easily in JavaScript. So in general, they're just methods or properties of objects. So it's very easy to interact with them once you get them with Taquito. Another example would be to get the blockhead, so the last block that was baked on blockchain. And you also use the Tezos Toolkit instance, the RPC property on it, and there's a method called getBlock, and you're going to get the last block that was baked. And from that block, you can get multiple information. So for example, the transactions that were included, or the different endorsements, etc. And probably one of the most interesting function that you would like to have in your application is to get the balance of an account or a contract. So imagine you have an application, you ask your users to connect their wallet, and then there are some transactions that they're going to make with your applications, and you want to show the balance of your users, so they know how much Tez they have and how much they can spend. So once again, you will be able to get that kind of information with Taquito. You use the Tezos Toolkit instance. There's a property called TZ on it, and that has a method that's simply called getBalance, and you pass the address of the account or the contract for which you want to know the balance. So I think those functions are quite important, because I've seen some developers using indexers to get that kind of information, and it's sometimes it's not necessary, because you are also using Taquito at the same time. So you can just use Taquito, continue using Taquito in your application to get that kind of information. And Taquito makes a direct HTTP request to the node, so the information is fresh directly from the node, and it's 100% sure that you have the right, for example, the right balance at the moment. The second feature of Taquito that's probably going to be even more interesting if you create an application is to be able to read data from smart contracts. So Tezos smart contracts expose all the values that they hold, and Taquito is going to make it easy for you to read this data and present them to your users, or process them, or whatever you would like to do with the data inside the contract. So once again, it's going to be very easy to interact with the contract. You have first to create what we call a contract abstraction. So it's basically going to be a JavaScript object with different properties and methods. And to create it, once again, you just take your Tezos Toolkit instance. So if you're developing in the front end, there's going to be a property called wallet, and that property has a method called @, and you pass the address of the contract that you want to interact with. And now in the contract variable, you have everything you need to read data from the contract, to interact with the contract. There's no other step, that's it, just one line of code. And then once you have that contract, if you want to get the storage of the contract, there's a method on the contract abstraction that's called storage. You just call it, it's a promise, and it's going to return the data from the contract. And now, like for example, if you have a token contract, now you have access to the total supply, you have access to the balances, the operators, all the information that you may need from the contract. And you will also be able to interact with the big maps directly from Taquito. So for example, for a token contract, there's going to be a big map that's called ledger. And if you want to get the balance of an account in the ledger big map, you just call the get method on the big map. And according to the kind of ledger it is, maybe you just have to pass the address. So you actually pass the key of the big map as a parameter. And then you're going to get the value that's associated with the key. So in addition of being able to read data from contracts with Taquito, you will also be able to fetch data from big maps. So that's a very interesting feature, depending on the use case of your dapp. But it can be interesting if your user has some kind of balance in a big map that you want to read, or if you're storing information about your users, then you can fetch them very easily using Taquito and read them from big maps. After reading data from smart contracts, you probably want to interact with the smart contract, so sending transactions to modify the state of the storage. So in general, that's something that beginners are very eager to try. So you can change the state of the contract. Even when you learn how to create smart contracts, there's always you always have to create some kind of entry point that takes a value and modify the storage of the contract. So when you have that kind of contract, then you can build the front end and use Taquito to interact with the contract, send a parameter to the entry point, and modify the storage. So once again, if you want to interact with the contract, you can still use the contract abstraction that you created before to read the data from the contract. It's the same process. But after that, when you want to interact with an entry point of the contract abstraction is going to expose a property that's called methods. And that property has different methods that whose names are exactly the names of the entry points of the contract. So here I just put entry point underscore name as an example, but imagine you have a token contract. There's going to be like a transfer entry point. So in your contract abstraction, in Taquito, you're going to have contract.methods.transfer. So the names of the entry points are going to be reflected as methods in the methods property of the contract abstraction. And so that makes it very easy. You don't have to know how it's formatted or anything. It's exactly the same name. And then you just have to pass the value that you want to send to the entry point to interact with them and modify the storage. And after passing the parameter, you can just call the send method, and the send method is going to forge the operation for you and send it to the node you're connected to. So as you can see with Taquito, it's very easy to forge transactions. It's just one line of code if you know the name of the entry point you want to interact with. it's just going to take like one line of code to send a transaction, to send an operation to the entry point. And Taquito is going to return an operation object with, once again, multiple properties and methods that you can use to get information about the operation that you just sent. So for example, there's going to be an op hash property that returns, that contains the hash of the operation. So maybe that's something that can be interesting if you want to present the hash to your users while they're waiting for the operation to be included in the blockchain. Or you can also inject the hash into a URL and with the link to have a look at the operation in an indexer. There's also a confirmation method on the operation, and that confirmation method is going to wait for the operation to be included in a block. So if you call the method without any parameter, it's just going to wait for one block, but you can pass a number as a parameter. Like if you want to wait for 3 blocks, you can just pass 3 as a parameter of the confirmation method, and Taquito is going to wait 3 blocks before confirming the operation. So Taquito makes it very easy to forge the transaction, but also to wait for the transaction to be baked and to wait for a confirmation. The last feature of Taquito is the availability for different tooling solutions. So in particular, there's a secondary library that's called Taquito/Utils. That's also already included in the Taquito/Taquito library. So you don't have to install it. So if you just need that library, of course, you can install it independently. But it's also it's already included in the general library, so you don't have to install it if you're already using the Taquito/Taquito library. And the Utils library exposes different tools that you can use. So, for example, there are different methods to validate addresses. That can be something that you would like to have in your application. For example, if you let your users input contract addresses, for example, or even implicit account addresses, you would like to sanitize those addresses before using them to interact with the blockchain. And you can do that. You can sanitize the inputs, the addresses as inputs using, for example, the validate address method in the provided by Taquito. You just pass or the validate contract address. So the validate address is just going to make sure that the address that you give as a parameter is a valid implicit account address, and the validate contract address is going to make sure that the address is a valid contract address. So once after validating that, you can be sure that the addresses that you have are valid Tezos addresses. There's also 2 methods that can be very useful, above all if you're interacting with token contracts. There's a method that's called bytes to char and char to bytes. So those 2 methods are going to convert bytes into strings and strings into bytes. So it can be very very useful if you interact with an FA2 contract, where some big maps have bytes as key and also bytes as values. So instead of going on Stack Overflow and trying to find your own solution to convert strings into bytes with JavaScript, you can just use those two methods that Taquito provides to easily convert strings to bytes and bytes to string, and then use them as parameter, for example, for a contract call or to get some value from a big map. And another tool that's very useful with Taquito, so this one is available directly in the Taquito/Taquito package. This one, Taquito is going to let you originate contracts. So that's something that you may want to use in your application. If you have an application where users need their own contract to interact with, you can do that directly with Taquito. There's an originate method, and you just need to pass the code of the contract and the initial storage. And then Taquito is going to originate the contract for you. You will also be able to track the operation and the inclusion of the operation in a block. So that's also something that can be interesting depending on your use case. Okay, so those were like the 4 main features of Taquito, of the main library of Taquito. But Taquito also provides a lot of different solutions for the TezAsia ecosystem and different tools that you can that you may need in your application. One of them, and probably one that you're going to need in your application, is to interact with the wallet. So Taquito is going to make that possible. We have a library that's called Beacon Wallet, which is basically a wrapper for the Beacon SDK, but it's going to make it easier for you to plug in Taquito and the Beacon SDK together. So this library is a separate package. You also have to install it separately from NPM. But then once it's installed, you can easily import the Beacon Wallet class from it. And it also takes one line to instantiate it. So you can you're going to create an instance of the Beacon Wallet. And then once you have that instance, you just provide it to Taquito through the set wallet provider method. And now Taquito is going to be aware of the connection with the wallet that the user chose, and it's going to use this wallet to sign transactions. So when you're going to when your user is going to interact with the contract, if the Beacon wallet was provided as a wallet to Taquito, then Taquito is going to use it. Let's say, for example, your user chose to use Temple. Then when you will want the user to sign an operation, the Temple wallet is going to open, and they're going to be asked to sign the transaction through the Temple wallet. So as you can see, just a couple of lines of code to give the possibility to your users to select the wallet that they want to use, and then to use it throughout your application after that. Also, so the main use of Taquito at the moment is in front-end apps, but it's also possible to use Taquito in the backend. So there are less use cases of that, less examples that you're going to find. I built some examples using Taquito in the backend, and it works almost exactly the same as the front end. There are just a few differences, because in the backend you don't have access to different libraries that are available in the browser. But it's also possible to use Taquito to for the 4 main features that we saw before. So to read data from the blockchain, read data from smart contracts, interact with smart contracts, and also the different tools that we saw. So the only one of the main difference that you're not going to be able to use the Beacon wallet in the backend, but Taquito has a special library that's a signer library. So you just have to install it. there is a class from that signer library that's called in-memory signer. You just provide it when you create an instance for this class. You just provide the private key of the account that you want to use to sign operations. And there's a different method on the Tezos Toolkit instance that's called setSignerProvider. But it works in the same way like the setWalletProvider. And that's it. So now Taquito is aware of the account that you want to use to sign operations, and all the operations that you were able to send from the front end, you're also going to be able to send them from the back end. So the usage of Taquito in the back end is going to be very similar to the one you would have in the front end. So here we saw like different the basic use of Taquito to interact with the Tezos blockchain. There are also some advanced uses of Taquito, so something that you may or may not need according to your use case. But one of the goals of Taquito is to provide like a Swiss knife for front-end applications and make your life as a developer easier when you need special data from the blockchain. So for example, we introduced support for tzip12 and tzip16. So Taquito has special methods now that you can use to interact with contracts that follow the tzip12 or tzip16 standards. So here I try to keep the code simple, but there are some steps that are not shown, but you will have an understanding of what happens. So as usual, we create the contract abstraction, and then there's some settings to do, but you will get a tzip12 or tzip16 method on it. And for example, on the tzip12 method, you will get another method that's called getTokenMetadata. So imagine you have a token contract with different token IDs. You don't have to create the storage of the contract and get the big map that you need, and then try to figure out the token ID and then parse the value that's written from the big map. Taquito is just going to give you that method, the getTokenMetadata. You pass the token ID that you're interested in, and it's going to return you the value that's associated with the token ID. And it's the same for the metadata. If you're reading a contract that implements the tzip16 standard, you're going to have a method that's called getMetadata, and Taquito is just going to parse the value and return it to you, so you can have access to the metadata. And you don't even have to figure out where the metadata is, because the tzip16 standard allows you to store the metadata in the contract, on the IPFS, or in a different storage provider. And you don't even have to figure that. Taquito is going to figure it for you. You just have to call getMetadata, and that's it. You're going to get the metadata. You don't have to know where the metadata is. Taquito is going to take care of it. Using Taquito is also possible to estimate operations. It's a feature that's very in demand at the moment. A lot of developers want to get an estimation of the cost for the operation. Taquito also provides that. There's a toTransferParams method on the entry point method that you can call. So it's just like forging an operation, but without the send method. Instead of send, you use toTransferParams, and Taquito is going to return different values associated with the operation. So like the gas limit, storage limit, the total cost of the operation, the burn fee in microtez. So different values that you can use to estimate the cost of the operation. And finally, another advanced use of Taquito is signing data. So to be more exact, it's not directly from Taquito, so it's going to be from the Beacon SDK, but Taquito wraps it, so it's going to be available through Taquito. So there are different steps that I didn't put here in the code, but just to give you an idea, once you created the instance of the wallet, there's a client property on that instance that exposes a method called request sign payload, and you send the payload that you want to sign. So in general, it's going to include, of course, the message that you want to get signed, but also the format, different values that are going to be needed to sign the data. And then Taquito is going to forge the signature, and then you can use the signature the way you would like. And so that was it for the presentation of Taquito. So yeah, just to recap quickly, Taquito is JavaScript library to interact with the Tezos blockchain, helps you to read data from the blockchain, from smart contracts, interact with smart contracts, and also gives you different tools to work with data from the Tezos blockchain. And there are a lot more to say about Taquito, but there's not enough time today. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And I'm also available on different channels on Telegram or on Twitter. If you have questions about Taquito, you're always welcome to ask them, and we will help you as much as possible. So, okay, thank you very much. So if there are any questions, I can answer them before showing you a little bit of code. Okay, I think. Huh?
Okay, so we have questions from Vijay. So I will show those questions on the screen.
Okay.
So yeah, so how can we get accounts in Tezos development network using Taquito?
I'm not really sure what you mean with accounts, like users' accounts. Well, the main thing that you can get for the account is the balance. I don't know what kind of information you would like to get about the account, but it's possible to get the balance of the account. It's also possible, if the account is registered in Tezos domains, it's possible to get the Tezos domain name associated with the account. I don't know.
Okay, so next question. Can we get all transactions made by your Tezos account address or contract address using Taquito?
No, it's not possible. So Taquito is only able to interact in the present with the blockchain, so forge operations and read data that's available right now in the blockchain. So in general, that kind of request is going to require an indexer, so you can see past operations, but Taquito doesn't have access to past transactions.
Okay. So we have next question from Vijay. How can we deploy a contract in Tezos using Taquito?
Yeah, so this one, maybe the question came before I showed it in the presentation. So there's a special method that you can use with Taquito. It's called originate, and you just pass the code and the storage of the contract, and it's just going to originate the contract for you.
Okay. So we have one more question from Vijay. Are there events concept in Tezos smart contracts? If there, how can we use Taquito to fetch events or logos?
Yeah, at the moment there's no events concept in Tezos, so no, it's not possible. There's no Probably maybe in the future, but not at the moment. So it's not possible to use that feature.
Okay, so there's two more questions from Vijay. How can we use in-memory signer for multi-signatures?
I think it's going to depend on the implementation of the smart contract that you have. So the in-memory signer is just going to be able to forge one operation from one account. So I think it's really going to depend on the smart contract that you're going to interact with.
Okay.
But I don't see. Yeah, probably it's possible.
Okay, so we have one last question from Vijay again. Can you please tell what is TZIP developed for multi-signatures?
Yeah, I don't think I would know about this one. I don't know if there's a TZIP that was developed for multi-signatures. Yeah, that I will have to research that, but I don't know on the top of my head now.
Okay, I think we do not have any more questions.
Okay. So I'm just going to show a quick live coding, so you can have a better understanding of how Taquito integrates into a web application. So the application I'm going to show you is a Svelte application, because I prefer working with Svelte. But you will see that you're probably more familiar with React, and you will see that a lot of concepts are the same. It works in a similar way. It just structures the application differently. So just give me a second. I will show you. Okay, I think you should see it now. Okay, so on the left side, of course, you have the code for the application. On the right side, you have the browser. So the application is a very simple one. Actually, it's built on a template that I have available on GitHub. If you want to use it, it's there. So yeah, it's very simple application. There's some title. There's a button where you can connect your wallet. I'm just going to show quickly how the code works, so you can have an idea of the flow, of connecting Taquito, connecting the Beacon wallet, and getting different information. So just a quick like a 1-minute introduction to Svelte, so you understand a little bit how it works. There's a tag here, the script tag, where you have all the JavaScript to interact with the inside the component. Then you have the styling here with the here it's CSS, and then you have some HTML code here. So every component in Svelte has some code, some style, and some HTML. So like in React, you can react to different events and to different steps in your application. In Svelte, there's here a method that's called onMount. That's very similar to use effect in React that you would call when the application mount to get some information or to set up your application. So we call it here. And so if you remember from the presentation, we imported here the Tezos toolkit from Taquito. So we're going to create an instance here that we save in the Tezos variable. And then we're also going to create an instance of the wallet. So the idea here when the application mount is not to connect the wallet directly, is to check if the wallet was connected before. So the Beacon wallet is going to persist some information in the local storage. So when your user comes back to the application, you can connect them. You can connect the wallet directly. So that's what we're doing here. We create an instance of the wallet. So you see that the options are just the name of your application. So that's the name that's going to show up when the users are required to sign an operation. And here there's another property that's called preferred network. And we're going to pass GrenadaNet to it because we're going to interact with the Granada testnet. And this property is important if you want your users to interact with Kukai. Kukai is going to need to know that information. Once it's done, you can use this method here, the get active account, to use the Beacon SDK to get the value out of the local storage. And the Beacon SDK is going to check if there was an instance that was created before. And if there was an instance created before, we're just going to get the user address, and then we can set the wallet as a wallet provider. So it does something like that. So here you can see I'm not connected. If I go connected, so that's so it goes here to connect the wallet. This opens when I request when the Beacon SDK is going to request permissions, and then your users are going to be to decide what kind of wallet they want to use for your application. Let's use Temple here. Okay. Okay. So now you can see that my wallet is connected. So here's my address, and now we have a disconnect button. And you will see that if I reload the application, my wallet is still connected. So that's what this step here does. So creating the instance of the wallet and checking if there was a wallet that was used before. And when you connect the wallet, there's just an additional step to request permissions from the users, and then you can use that get pkh method to get the user address, so the address from the wallet that the user chose. To disconnect the wallet, so if I click on disconnect, the only thing you have to do is to call that destroy method from the wallet instance, and it's going to clear some of the data that's in the local storage. So when your user comes back, he's not going to be connected automatically. So yeah, so that's it for the flow of connecting Taquito to your application. So it's just this line, and then connecting the Beacon wallet. And that's it. You have like simple application where you can connect a wallet and disconnect it. Now, what we would like to do is to interact with the contract and see how it works. So I deployed already a contract on the Granada testnet. So this is this contract. So to open a little bit. So here the code. So it's a very simple contract that we use internally at Taquito to test some new features. So the goal of the contract is just to get some values and to update the storage of the contract. And here there's an entry point that's called simple param that takes an integer. That's the one that we're going to try to interact with. So we're just going to send an integer to the contract, and here in the storage there's a simple property, and the integer that we send is going to be added to the value of simple. So for example, if we send 5, then simple is going to become 14. So let's do that now. So yeah, what we would like to do is just to have a simple button to that the user can click, and it's going to forge an operation. So we can do it here, button, like send transaction. Okay, like that. Send transaction. So that's the svelte way of doing it, but I think it's pretty clear what's happening. When you're going to click on the button, it's going to call the send transaction function, and then here you just create a new function like that. So it's going to be a promise, and so we have the Tezos toolkit instance here that's already created. So what we want to do is create that contract abstraction that I talked about in the presentation. So you just use the Tezos toolkit, wallet, at, and then you use the address of the contract, which is here. So here now we have the possibility to interact with the contract, and now we can forge the operation. So we can still use Tezos. No, not Tezos. Now we use the contract. Sorry. There is a methods property, and then here under the methods property, we're going to have a list of all the entry points of the contract. So if you remember, this entry point was called simple param, like that. So that's going to be the name here of the entry point, and it's going to take an integer. So we said like 5. And then we call send to forge the operation. So, and that's it. That's everything you have to do when you use Taquito to send an operation to a contract. It's just 2 lines of code. And after that, we're going to wait for the operation to be included. Yeah, so maybe just we're going to get the hash here. We can display it. The user. We're going to get the hash. Let's put it somewhere in the code. Where is it connected? Yeah, maybe we're going to put it here. So if there is a hash, we're going to show it here. Operation hash, like that. And it's not very nice, but we're just for prototyping, we're going to put an alert and operation included, like that. So here Taquito is going to wait for the operation to be included in one block, and then when it's going to be done, there's going to be an alert that's going to pop up on the screen to tell you that that the operation is now included. Okay. Let's see if let's see if it works now. Okay. So you see it requests me to sign the operation. You remember the name of the application is here that we put when we set up the Beacon wallet. Just going to confirm it. Now you can see we have the operation hash here. So we're just going to wait a few seconds to see and you see the operation is already included. And now if we go back here, where is it here, operation. So you can see that the operation was included here a few seconds ago, simple param, and you see it was 9, and we passed 5, and now it's 14. So that's how easy it is when you use Taquito to forge an operation and send it to a smart contract. And now with GranadaNet, with the Granada upgrade, sorry, the operation is just going to take 30 seconds to be included, so it's really fast. And so Taquito makes it easy, Tezos makes it fast. That's everything you need as a developer. And that was it. I don't know if there are other questions before we finish.
Thank you, Claude, for taking up the wonderful session on how to build a front end of the app integrating Taquito. So now we'll keep the session open for a quick Q&A from the audience. We have questions coming from Vijay. Could you please share the link to the code of this project in the chat box? Vijay, I think we can share the code right after the workshop. We will have it pasted on the Discord server of the TezAsia. So we have one more question coming from Vijay. Could you please show how you have deployed the contract in Granada testnet, and where do we get contract address?
So the thing is that I wrote the contract in Lego. So I used the Lego web IDE to deploy the contract. But it's also possible to do it with Taquito if you get the Michelson code of the contract. So you can just go like in Better Call Dev, and you get the Michelson of the contract, and then you can provide that Michelson to Taquito, to the originate method, in addition to the initial storage. And then you can originate the contract directly with Taquito. And of course, once the contract is originated and on the blockchain, Taquito is going to return some values, and among those values, there's the address of the new contract. So even while using Taquito, you can originate the contract and get the address of the new contract.
Okay, I think we have answered all the questions. So if you have any more questions, please ask your questions now.
And if you have more questions later, you can come. There's a Taquito channel on Telegram. You can come there and you can ask all the questions you like.
Okay, so we don't have any questions coming from the audience. I think we can wind up the session. Thank you again, Claude, for taking up the session. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good day.